You're listening to the Small Business Talk podcast, episode 71.
Small Business Talk is a podcast for business owners and entrepreneurs who want a better way to run their businesses without spending years doing it the hard way. Small Business Talk is hosted by Cathy Smith, who has run the same marketing agency for more than 17 years and helped hundreds of business owners achieve their marketing goals.
Welcome to Small Business Talk. Today, my guest is Michael Worthington from Worthington and Stoop. Welcome, Michael.
Hi, Cathy. How are you?
Very well, thank you. And today, we're going to talk about growing your business through collaborations. Michael, you've had a few businesses over the years that we've known each other. So would you like to give everybody the 2-minute elevator pitch about who you are and why you're here?
Oh, well, I met you a few years ago down in Bunbury when we were doing some workshop on getting customers to be attracted to you rather than chasing customers. But succinct background, came out of the military. Finding jobs was hard, so then becoming self-employed, as it were, was perhaps the only option. So started wearing out shoe leather, building up cleaning rooms. Learned pretty quickly you could build them up and sell them, which was very attractive to a young guy with a family and a mortgage to pay off. And that's where I really started learning about business. And since then, it was cleaning businesses. We had computer companies. We've had book publishing companies, built and sold a lot. Construction companies, had a couple of those, built and sold them, and actually did franchising along the way. In the meantime, I was doing a lot of consulting with people saying, how can you build all these businesses? So it's just marketing. The product's the product. And once you understand marketing and the fundamentals of that, it becomes pretty easy. And once you understand some of the barriers, most people struggle with getting the six figures straight away, which is the 100,000 plus. And then they get you around about 350,000. We all start to get a bit lazy. It gets real comfortable. You're getting plenty of money and you can do the holiday stuff. And it's like, was I really going to go for the $1 million? Well, this is pretty cool down it. And it just takes a little bit to just push. But once you push past that, I find, once you start getting around the 750, it's no longer about the money. It's just, can I get the $1 million turnover? And so it's a bit of an ego trip after that. And the marketing changes not in structure, but just in some of the methodologies in each stage you go through. So once you've got that down, you're pretty right to go.
Absolutely. And I think mindset as well changes once you start hitting a few of those goals that you've set in place and then hoping to achieve. Okay, so let's talk about how we can grow our business and specifically through collaborations or joint ventures.
There's a couple of things to realize. So when we very first start off, we tend to go to networking groups and we tend to do a lot of referral business, and that's pretty good. We refer people to people we know, like, and trust, and they refer people to us. And I always call it having, in my day, it was the old Rolodex. Be known as the person who knows everybody. And then you'll always get asked. And business tends to grow that way. And that's kind of an informal process. I find that that's a good way to start understanding other people and making sure that they match your market. And when I talk marketing, as you know, Cathy, I don't talk demographics. I'm not after age. I'm not after the sex of the person. I'm not after where they live. I'm more after the emotional pull that these people have to buy a certain product or service. And we see Apple do it with their emotional pulls. We see Richard Branson, his emotional pull is, if you think you're paying too much for whether it's records, airlines, phones, stuff, the emotional pull is what they go for. And that's, BMW do the same ultimate driving experience. So they're really looking for what is the emotion you're trying to fulfill, then saying, hey, we can fulfill that for you. So that's why they buy the products and services. So I think once you establish what that is, what that enables you to do then is identify other players out there in the marketplace and other people you may know who are also satisfying the same emotion. And you get away from this demographic. Now, I'm not saying it's a golden rule and it applies 100%. Nothing's ever 100% in the world. But it probably applies 80, 90% of the time. There are always exceptions, and that's fine. And I acknowledge those exceptions, they are there. But, for the average person, if you can find that emotional niching, as we call it, you're going to probably be better served. I always joke that, you go to a niching seminar and the person standing up in front of the room has got carpenters there, doctors there, lawyers there, plumbers there, secretaries there. They're not even niching themselves. And when you suddenly go, no wonder this stuff doesn't work for me. No, it doesn't. Get onto the emotional track, and all of a sudden, when people ask you what you do, you start to develop a very succinct phraseology that is all about them and no longer about you. Your marketing becomes about your client and no longer about you. I own one-on-one media groups, so I own a media company as a journalist, and I often joke that a lot of the adverts I see makes your mum proud. Won't get you any customers, but mum will be proud to see them and make you feel good. And some of the really, as you go, shake your head. I remember back in my day, we're working with Kia Media and doing stuff for WA Salvage. It's gone now, but it was Luigi and, hey, we're not fancy, but we're cheap. Shot in the store with all the junk behind him, and a dude hanky on his head. People just go, oh, that's really, I don't want one of those ads. Really? It made him millions. You don't want one of those ads that makes you millions.
Absolutely.
That's the first thing to get done. That's when you start realizing that you start referring to people you know, like, and trust. That's when you start to learn about collaboration. But collaboration and joint ventures, as we grow, become projects. It means that you're actually going to move into a space with another trusted entity, another business person, and align yourself and strategize an actual formal project, formal agreement. And you're going to design this product or service offering that you're both going to contribute to the marketing, you're both going to contribute your time to, then you're both going to share in the profits. Now, I can tell you, when you very first start off and you're earning 70, 80, 100 grand, sharing profits with somebody else is probably the last thing on your mind. Actually having to contribute some of your money into structured marketing programs is perhaps the last thing on your mind. And I say, you're probably going to have to keep your referrals and keep your collaboration techniques. We can talk about them as we go along. Build that skill set up. So when you get to the 300, 350,000 turnover mark, you really start to have a little bit of capital then to do a real joint venture that'll have massive dividends and massive returns. So that's one of my little criteria, is that people ask me about joint ventures, and it's like, let's crawl before we walk and walk before we run. And so that might give a bit of a snapshot of how I perceive the difference between a referral marketing strategy, which is absolutely brilliant, and they never go away, no matter what level of business you're at, and a formalized joint venture, which is a full-on collaboration as a project.
Okay, so there's quite a few things that we can unpack there. Obviously, emotion sells, and we see that with the cute puppies on everything that's even closely related. So, yes, definitely tapping into the emotion. And, of course, going to seminars where people are selling you and telling you how to do it doesn't necessarily mean that they're doing it the same way. So you're basically buying into their system, not necessarily a methodology that works. And also, I like what you say about joint ventures, because people are always saying, oh, yeah, we've got to get into joint ventures. But if you're in that smaller range, then you need to be thinking about what benefits it's going to be for both. And if you haven't got the capital to put in, then it's not going to work for either of you. So that might be a case of where you just do a more informal kind of collaboration. One of the ones that I heard you speak recently was about a pest controller and a cleaner. Maybe you can tell us about that one.
Yeah, so this gives you a bit of an insight as the two gentlemen are building their businesses up. In this case, it was two gentlemen. One's a carpet cleaner and one's a pest controller. And the carpet cleaner predominantly deals with property managers. That's the space that he works in. He's very good at it. He can get rid of things that just no one else seems to be able to get rid of, in the mess on the carpets when people move out of tenancies. And he was looking at expanding the business. And of course, you whiteboard all the different things he could possibly do. And we went for the client and what was the emotional thing on the client. And that was, look, tenants are gone. It's got to be done. It's got to be fast. I've just got to trust that the job is done properly at a good price and get in and out. And I said, does the property manager use anyone else at that point in time, either moving in or moving out? He said, well, pest controllers. I said, you know any? He said, well, I talk to him all the time. I said, so every single property manager that you deal with, he deals with, and vice versa. And he went, no. Well, guess what? He's got a client base. You've got a client base. You've got a client base in the middle where you both meet and marry up. But now you can introduce each other to your other client bases. And they're able to sit down and their collaboration was looking at why the people in the middle that they were using together liked using them, and what this service offering, if they came together, could actually look like. Franco told me one time that he came out of a house and his white shirt was moving. It was covered in fleas, basically. Oh, it's like, oh, thanks for the visual imagery. So these two gentlemen, when we have a common denominator here, we have a common thread here that says these are the people that need us. And guess what? These people like and trust me. The people I'm using over here that you don't talk to like and trust me, and I can introduce you as what a preferred supplier and start having those conversations. And he did vice versa. That became a really good collaboration. And what we said to both of them is you also need to then expand your network, because obviously maybe gutters need fixing, maybe there's leaking taps. What other service-orientated, like the manual service-orientated things can be done around that property managers may require, and build a Rolodex of services. So when you go there and say, oh, by the way, if you need anything, look, I don't do this, but I do know a whole list of, and they were able to put that in their submissions as well, that they actually had this preferred supply list themselves. So the property manager actually did get stuck from the person they were using, perhaps couldn't do the job for the day. That's a great opportunity. And then they go, who do I get? Oh, I don't have to think about it. I'll just ring the carpet cleaner, or I'll just ring the pest control person. It's those little narrow entryways that kind of drive the wedge and can open up a business for you in those terms. And you get to be more of a trusted supplier as well, because they see you as someone who can be very reliable in what you do, but also as a source of great information and backups.
Yes, and that's great, because not only then are they trusting you, but they're also trusting your friends, your network, your people that you're bringing in. So then I definitely don't want to get rid of the carpet guy, because he knows the pest guy. And yeah, now we need some gutters, so we'll just give them a ring and see if we can get some guttering. And then that also brings in the guttering guy that doesn't have to build up that know, like and trust, because he comes in as part of your know, like and trust. So That's great. One we had locally was a restaurant and a winery working together for an event. And it was a similar sort of thing that they then were able to put together a few events. So not quite as lucrative as your example, but certainly somewhere that people could look at as just starting off with a 1 or 2 situation thing and then move on from there.
It's really interesting. I was talking to a gentleman in the UK. He started building his Rolodex of services up. In the end, he found a point of entry into gardens was building these stone walls. And then from the stone wall building in the front garden, they needed a deck done. They needed artificial lawn put down. They needed some landscaping put down. They needed the little lights put into the deck so it made it all look pretty, maybe some fencing and some gates. And he built this Rolodex of services. And we're having a chat, and I said, "But where's the entry point? Where's the soft point?" And he said, "Well, it's the wall. That's really where it all begins. That's got to go in first. Everything gets structured around that." We got him to go to 2 or 3 people who did that particular service and say to them, "Hey, where would you like me to be your lead generator? I'll go generate the leads. You show me how to quote this thing, because it's virtually per linear meter and by the height, so you get a square meterage." And they were like, "Why not? If you bring his leads, it brings his leads." So what he did, he built himself an actual landscape business, and he wasn't even a landscaper, but he just had this Rolodex of services he built up, and he actually went out, quoted the wall, and while he was there, he was saying, who's doing your deck, who's doing your lawn, who's doing the paving, who's doing the deck and likes, and he runs a fantastic business, and I don't think he's ever picked up a spirit level or a string line in his life. That's great collaboration of bringing people together, but just a very nice person, just one of those genuine people who could talk to people, and people got to know, like, and trust him and going, you know what, you're actually looking after me.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's sometimes the thing too, especially in those kind of projects. People don't want to deal with 10 different people for 10 different trades. They just want to deal with one person who oversees the whole lot. So he almost became the project manager there and got everybody on page way that it needed to happen. So that was perfect.
Yeah. And those sorts of things happen all the time. And you can start from when you're very, very small to when you're very, very large. If you can get into some of these, the big guys, everyone says, oh, I'd love to have their Rolodex. Well, guess what? They'd love to have your Rolodex too. And I think that's something you can start building from day one. Like-minded people, build them around you.
Yeah, and I think sometimes also when you go to these networking events, it's not necessarily selling to the people in the room, but collaborating with them to then sell to a larger group of people, because now there's 2 or 3 of you. So you can go for those bigger projects that you may not have been able to go for by yourself.
And we find now, people get very precious, and I've been guilty of this myself, I'll hold my hand up on this one. We get very precious about what we do. We think we're the only ones that do it. We think we're the only ones that do it the best. People are going, oh, really? But if you have a look at the way that the world is changing now, it is so easy to learn how to do something, whether we're doing it in media with a media company, whether I'm doing it in mining, I own a mining company as well. Everything is open. And I'm saying to people, if you really want to grow really, really quickly and really, really rapidly, just get competition out of your mind and just go for collaboration. Just because someone is doing a podcast like this, and maybe you do podcasts yourselves, and a lot of us do podcasting, don't be afraid to come and contribute to somebody else's show and reciprocate. If you collaborate with people, they're talking to different people than what you do. You've both got different attitudes. People like some people better than others. And I think when you collaborate, you start to learn other people's systems that might benefit you and show them yours. Say, this is what I'm doing. This is how I'm doing it. There is so much work out there. There is no fear of competition anymore whatsoever. In this world that you can tap into, you can go with an attitude of scarcity, and that will contract you and hold you. If you go with an attitude of abundance and sharing and collaborating, that will expand you, and it never, ever fails to do so.
Yes, so true. I always say, let's make the pie big enough for all of us, and let's make a bigger piece for everybody, rather than all grabbing our own tiny little bit. A couple of weeks ago, we had Emma Carver from M's Forever Lips on, and she was talking about customer service. And like she said, she sells a particular brand of lipstick and skincare. And people can get that from hundreds of different suppliers, the exact identical thing. But they come to Emma because they like her as a person and she gives great customer service. So the way you do something is not necessarily the way that somebody else does it. Sometimes it is just about personality. There will be customers that don't suit you and you don't want to work with. If you've got that abundance mentality, then you can give them a referral to somebody else who they'll suit better. And then that way people are more likely to refer back to you as well.
When I built the building company and was doing all these collaborations then, I just went around to people, and I'll give you a couple of examples. One I did, I just went around to some of the other building companies and said, look, do you get any of these small jobs you just don't want? Yeah, we do. How about I do them? And I give you a commission back on them because I'm just me. That'd be great for me to get going. And they were like, oh, that's great. Yeah, why not? And we're going. So there was no fear. As I grew and started doing larger jobs, they were doing a lot of gyprocking and we started talking. I said, look, I got a modular click-in-place system that'll I won't do gyprocking, I'll do this. Oh, well, we'll use some of your stuff here. We'll use some of our stuff here. And we started to do joint work together. I did the same with an office furniture company. They were doing office furniture, and I introduced them to a designer who did office furniture, but more in screen systems. These are the desks with little screens around them and so forth. So we kind of did similar stuff, but different. And they were able to work on projects together because the office furniture guy had a cabinet making shop as well. So that really did help them in winning work that they wouldn't normally have won. Now they've actually joined as a partnership, a true partnership. And I think when you start looking at those things, from small acorns, great things can grow. Like-minded people, and don't be frightened of this collaboration. If I'm tripping over someone's feet, I'm the first one to say, right, tell me exactly where you're going. Okay, how can we mold this so you fulfill that gap, I fulfill this gap, and work together, and you will expand really, really quickly. It seems counterintuitive, but once you get into it and you get the right people, it is massive. The golf courses collaborate on buying power for golf clubs. They're still competing to who gets on the golf course. Some are pretty close together, but they collaborate to buy the golf clubs so they get a better buying price. So you can look at some of these things of where you can do this collaboration that'll benefit you and benefit the other person.
Yes, that's the absolute truth, isn't it? It's got to be a win-win for both of you. and that communication is the key, because if you're not communicating so that the other person can understand you, so making sure that they're getting the same message as you're trying to convey, that's where these sort of things can fall over and end up in a nasty mess. So definitely make sure that you're clearly communicating, and if something's upsetting you, let them know before it becomes a broken partnership or a broken collaboration.
Yeah, sometimes you'll start collaborating and people will just break away and you won't understand why. I just say to people, well, you can burn all your energy wondering about that, or you can just say, look, fair's fair, we're just different. And it didn't work out on either party. There's no rights or wrongs in this game. And move on. Move on quickly. That's what I say. You get over your upset and look, I'm probably speaking from experience, and just move on. And if they come back later, welcome them in. Things change. People change. Don't get hung up in the moment. It's a business. It's not your family. It's not your mum and dad and your kids. These are business people, and it is a business, unemotional transaction that's going on at the end of the day. We have emotion in it because we love what we do and we want to do the right things by our clients, but you're not going home and having dinner with these people, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So don't get too hung up on it.
And often it's got nothing to do with you. It's got to do with circumstances that are happening in their lives or their business, or just the total situations that can cause these sorts of upsets and things. So quite often you haven't actually personally done anything. It's just the circumstances at the time.
Yeah, and as a business grows, it morphs. And as we grow also, and you either grow together or you grow apart, as they say. And so a business is exactly the same thing. As your business starts to expand, maybe you get some rapid growth in yours, and you'll find your thinking and your methodologies and your attitudes start to mature in a different way. And sometimes you're looking and the other person can start to frustrate you, or they don't want to come on the journey. I often say this, people say to me, if you're a solopreneur, if you're a service oriented, if you're a practice business, you haven't got a real business because you can't go away and leave it. That's a lot of rubbish. I know multimillionaires that run their businesses every single day. A classic here in Perth would be John Hughes. Speaking to John today, he still goes to the yard. He still works in there, worth $340-something million. So don't tell me that, if you don't want to leave your business, you haven't got a real business. That's not true. A real business is just something that is gone past a job. So a job is where you work for yourself. You're doing the work to earn the income. What I would call business is when you're taking all your costs out, you're taking your wages out, and there's some surplus left over. That's what we call profit. And then that profit is actually starting to build a value. And once you've got a value, then you've got a business. And I don't care whether you've got a team of 1 or a team of 100, it's still a business. But I'm saying as you grow, your maturity will grow with you, and your strategies and your knowledge will grow. And some people will come with you and some people won't. And that's fine.
Yes, for sure. And for our overseas listeners, John Hughes is a very successful car salesman and has a whole fleet of car yards in Perth, Western Australia. And I'm sure his business does run without him, but yeah, like anybody, he still likes to have his fingers in the pie and make sure that things are on track.
So John, based in Perth, Western Australia, had 1 yard to distribute Hyundai dealerships out of, and that's the Hyundai car when it first came, and he outsold every car dealer in the world. So he was the biggest, not by per capita, by actual physical number of cars. He outsold the rest of the world. Been in business for 50 years. This guy knows a thing or two, and if you ask him the 2 secrets of success, and he'll tell you it's persistence and passion.
Lovely. I like that. That's great. Okay, so is there anything else we should be thinking about when we're going to be growing our business through collaborations?
So when you're looking at collaboration, I think once you know what the emotional gap is you want to fill, what you're actually aiming for, things you're listening to of a travel agent, and he gave people to the confidence and the knowledge to experience those travel destinations they never thought they could go to. So you can kind of get a feel of who's coming in. I think once you've got that, it's really important to start looking at your distinctive capabilities and just start getting a little bit analytical on this and start writing down and going, okay, where are my strengths? Why can I deliver this? How am I going to deliver this? If I've got any gaps in here, how do I get these gaps filled? The other side of the coin is always to have a renewal program on hand. But the starting point is to go, what assets have I got? And they're both physical assets and your personal assets, from your personal experiences to If you're a photographer, what kind of photography gear and what kind of editing software you have. But then your personal assets, what's been your experience, what types of photography and so forth you've been doing. I think it's when you start writing that down, you can start identifying gaps, and we've all got gaps. And those gaps stay because every level you go to, you suddenly realize you've still got more to learn. That's probably the next stage you want to go to, because you need to go with a really strong set of strengths when you're going to collaborate and convince somebody else that they should be collaborating. And I do it in reverse, and I help other businesses. If I'm going to collaborate with someone, I'd actually sit down, look at these things and say, okay, let's have a look at your strengths, your physical strengths, your assets you've got from in a physicality point of view, and a personal asset base as well as what you're going, and the driver. People who come with me, they know if you're not going million plus in your business, don't come, because you kind of just going to hold us back. That's not a negative on you. That's your choice. And I always say, if you just want the job, fantastic. If you want to get 200,000 or 300,000, take a rest, that's fantastic too. So you've got to get an alignment that not only on a customer base you're serving, but what level are you going to? Because if you've got a person who's going to collaborate with you, especially as you start getting into joint ventures, and they say, you know what, once I'm earning $350,000, $500,000 a year, I'm happy. Why are you happy? Well, I'll be able to go on more holidays. I can do this. I can do that. Now, if you're going for the million, not only is your work ethic going to be different, and I don't mean that in a positive or negative sense, I'm just meaning the effort you're going to put in, because you're going to change things and upskill and so forth to get to the million, and they're not. So already you're going to start finding a gap, start to open up in the marketplace. The other thing that's going to happen, and I bet everyone can guess this one, the client base itself is going to shift. You know, I started off a petitioning company, and my first job was, I think it was about $600 from a real estate who just said, I'll give you a go. And I went, thank you. And he goes, because I'm giving you a go because you just smile. I said, go on. He said, have a crack. He said, you build the wall, you build the wall. But it's amazing the people who just give you a go, if you're honest with them. To give you an example, the last job I did, so we come from $600, and the last job I did was $350,000. The disparity between one and the other. So you can imagine the growth paths. And if I'd have collaborated with someone at the beginning and they hadn't come on that journey with me, my electricians started their own companies, started employing apprentices. It was like, keep up, or I have to find someone who can handle this type of work. So I think that's really important, that you're both on the same page, not just in the asset classes, I would call it, for customers and what you're doing for them, but also being on the same page as in what is going to be your personal journey. You really want to get to know someone. And if someone says, I'm happy at 350, someone who says, look, 100 million, and you're going, 100 million, geez, when I get to the million, between 1 and 5 million, you know, I'm quite happy in that space. You've got to realize that you can go on the journey so far, but have a realization you're either going to be leaving people behind or people are going to be leaving you behind. And the closer you can get that fit at the beginning, you're going to have very long-term longevity in your business. Partnerships, as they were, pseudo partnerships, as they were, or the collaborations you've got, which adds more depth and more strength to what you're doing.
Yes, for sure. And a values match as well. If there's somebody who wants to knock off at 5 o'clock on a Friday and you're somebody who's happy to continue working through the weekend, if there's a values match in your family and personal life as well, that's not going to work unless that's the same there too. So I think you've given us some real gems there, Michael, and lots of things for people to think about. So at this point in our podcast, we always do the final 5, the last 5 questions. Are you game?
Well, I didn't know about this one. I normally do this to other people. Come on.
See, it's nice to turn the tables.
All right.
What is the best advice given to you by a mentor?
Do it quickly.
Lovely.
Don't ponder. Do it quickly.
Think quick, move quick, like that. What is the biggest help you've received since starting your business or any of your businesses?
People, would you believe, giving you premises for free to start your business from? Yeah, there's lots of people out there, myself included, run businesses when people say, hey, this is my idea, this is what I want to do, I just need some space. There you go. Use that. And I did it in a hay shed with a building company, and the guy said, if you can't make your business work out of a 50 square meter hay shed, you can't make it work anywhere.
And I think that's something that people have got to realise. Sometimes you just have to ask. And if you get a no, well, you haven't lost anything. And in that situation, you might get free rent for a little while.
Correct.
Absolutely got to ask. Okay, what is the one thing you have to do every day, your non-negotiable?
My non-negotiable every day, there's probably quite a few of them. I think the one that I always do at the beginning of the day, I have a look who I'm talking to and ask myself, will the person I'm talking to help me progress towards my goals? If the answer is no, I normally cancel the appointment.
Perfect. So I must be progressing you towards your goals because you didn't cancel me. So well done. What is your favourite business book and why?
Geez, there's a lot of those, isn't it? I think there's a book called The Strategic Manager, written by a friend of mine, Mike Davison. He's passed away now. It's a little tiny read. It's probably 125 pages. It's the best book on strategic management, succinctly put, that I've ever read. And I've still got the copy. It cost me $5 and I've still got it.
Best $5 you ever spent?
Absolutely.
Okay. Lucky last, number 5 is, what do you wish you had known when you started out?
I think when you first start out, we have doubts, all of us. And look, I'm the same, with us, whatever, any new business. But yeah, I think the biggest lesson I've learned that I wished I'd had when I very first started was just be more confident. They're not going to take your birthday off you. They might say you no and go away, but you'll still get birthdays. So just be more confident, a little bit more brave. You'll be amazed how many people will help people who are out there trying to help themselves.
Perfect. Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate your time and your wisdom. And if people would like to find you, Michael, where should they look?
You can look us online at www.worthingtonstoop, and stoop is STOOP.com. Look us up there, and that's probably the easiest way. And we're all over social media with the One-on-One Media Group.
Fantastic. And we'll drop all of those into the show notes so people can connect with you there. So thank you very much, Michael. Appreciate you having a chat today.
Thanks very much, Cathy. It was a lot of fun.
Don't forget to subscribe to Small Business Talk podcast and head on over to smallbusinesstalk.com.au/downloads for all the show notes and links to this episode. Remember, to be great, you must start. Pick one tip from today's episode, take action and implement it. Let's meet again next week at the same time and place. Until then, take action. And SBT community, enjoy your journey.